When you travel by road in France, you can't miss the signs where the words Commune de or du are followed by a place name. A commune is a town or rural district with its own elected council. Practically every smallest village in France is a commune, and local patriotism runs high. But when people speak about the Commune, they mean the Commune of Paris, which came into existence in 1871 and lasted for 2 months, full of lessons and warnings for us today. Its story goes back to the famous Revolution of 1789, which changed semi-feudal France into a country where an industrial revolution like England's was possible. In Paris, an elected commune did actually exist for 15 months. When it was put down, the new commercial class, the new bourgeoisie, was left unsatisfied because they still hadn't got all the governing power they needed to change taxes and import duties and such. So, this being France, there were 2 more revolutions. The growing working class joined in with its own agenda, which had a strong leftward twist. But there was no second commune, and in 1870 there was still a king, now called an emperor, and still a lot of unrest. But suppose we'd been visiting Paris in, say, the late 1860s, and that we were staying with middle-class French friends. Paris would have looked pretty good. We might have been taken to spend some time in the Bois de Boulogne, or taken to meet some of the bouquinistes, the book and print sellers along the Seine, or shown the progress on what was going to be a splendid new opera house. In fact, in the 2 decades after 1850, central Paris was largely remade, with fine buildings and boulevards, at the cost of the homes of many poorer people. And Paris would have looked much less prosperous away from the boulevards. There were mean streets untouched by renewal. The poor and the very poor had been badly affected by an economic slump. There were men and women who were seldom sketched or photographed. People could also sense a war in the offing. This would be provoked by their ruler, whom we've seen, a weak man who shared the name but not the character of the great Napoleon. A diplomatic trick would justify an attack on a youthful rival for European leadership. And war, some thought, might bring people in France together. In Paris, it might silence the voices demanding their own democratically elected commune. Well, just as had been hoped, the war did seem, at first, to unite people. From the better off and the poor, working-class Parisians were furiously patriotic. There was a cry, "Berlin, in 4 weeks!" There was talk about the mitrailleuse, a French invention, one of the world's earliest machine guns. If it hadn't kept jamming, it might have been a decisive weapon. But it did, and the campaign jammed too. The French generals hadn't understood that Prussia now had an army like few others the world had seen. A German artist shows us straight-backed artillerymen and mechanics in neat overalls. The Prussians were irresistible. The French were brave, badly organized, and poorly led. And so at last, Count von Bismarck rides out to accept Napoleon's surrender with an army of 83,000 troops at Sedan, and France becomes a republic. A government of national defense is formed in Paris. Later there would be elections, and the president of the National Assembly in Paris would be the 73-year-old Adolphe Thiers, reactionary, cunning, and with an ambition to rule. Much of what's left of the French armies fall back on the capital, and the Prussians advance inexorably until they can look down on their prey. Parisians who can afford it, being Parisians and insatiably curious, go to the ramparts, for this is still a city with walls, and pay 5 sous to watch the enemy take up the positions which they decide to hold, and then to wait patiently for their great siege guns to arrive. Paris, in crisis, is under siege, but it still isn't a commune.